What are some of the most valuable skills you use in your day-to-day work now?
Got it. So, of course, as an ex-McKinsey consultant, I'm going to answer in threes. So I have three things that I'm going to share with you today. The list is probably a little longer, but these are three that come to mind. The first is very high level of ownership of work and like knowing what good looks like. The second is a kind of general knowledge about what's important in a business of different stages. And the third is like being able to think through very carefully where the source of value comes from in anything that you're doing. I'll just go through those three one by one. So when I say high ownership, like one of the key things that junior folks at McKinsey get trained in is basically how to work really, really hard and be extremely accountable. And the amount of work that you can get done in a week is, compared to like many other environments I've worked on, is truly extraordinary. I'm sure you can attest to that as well. Like the way you'll produce and iterate on content. Of course, you have like an army of people behind you. But one of the things about being an entrepreneur, I hate to say it because it has like bad connotations, but you have to be able to hustle. Like you have to be able to move things along quickly. And there's no one else who's going to hold you to account, especially in the early days. So that has been really helpful. There's a dark side to that as well. Overworking, running the risk of burnout, tying your identity to your work because it's basically all that you're doing. So there's some dangers there, but having worked in that environment, like for sure, that's super important. The second thing I would say is that when I left McKinsey, I founded a digital health company and we raised 3 rounds of funding from angels and VCs. And to raise funding from a professional, sophisticated investor takes a certain amount of know-how. Like you have to know how to talk finance, you have to know how to talk like business operations, org chart, strategy. Like there's a whole broad spectrum of things that you need to look and sound smart on because you're talking about things that haven't been built yet. You're sort of selling a vision for the future. And strategy consulting, especially if you do like a variety of projects, you will learn a ton of like, reasonably deep, I wouldn't say superficial, like, 1 or 2 layers deep of like generalist business knowledge. You learn how to speak the language, you learn how to talk about the problems, how to talk about the solutions. And when you're pitching and selling yourself and your ideas and your business as it grows, those skills are invaluable. Like there are a lot of people who are technically far more brilliant than I will ever be, but they'll struggle with that part of the pitch, of the sale. And I think the same skills are important when you're trying to hire people because you're selling the vision. And the final thing I would say after the generalist knowledge is like understanding where the sources of value are in a business. So one of the things that you get trained in at a place like McKinsey or any top tier consulting company is like asking the really fundamental questions and building like a first principles understanding of a business or an industry. Now, the danger there again is that you can sort of become like academic in your approach to business. I've seen lots of consultants found startups that fail, but they look amazing on paper. So they have like the best unicorn on a pitch deck, but they lose the scrappiness in the implementation. So there's a risk there. But I think, just answering some basic questions about like because one of the risks in a startup is you can create value for entities that you work with, but you can't always capture it. I have made that mistake myself in the past. So you not only need to like solve a problem, but you need to figure out like how you're actually going to capture value. And if you succeed, is that a business you actually want to build? Like a lot of people set off and they start building businesses, but then if you project forward like 5 years, if you actually nailed that problem, is that a business you would actually want to have built? Like, let's say there's an army of people you need to run the business or whatever it may be. If you don't think through those things early on, you might end up with a business that actually you don't want to have built and get sort of trapped in there. So those are 3 things, just to recap. The kind of ownership and work tempo. Number 2 is the like generalist knowledge of how to talk about business, how to sell an idea. The third one was thinking about like where the sources of value are in an industry or in an arena that you're going after.